Brand disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on this platform by individuals, callers, or invited guests are their own. The information you hear does not reflect the overall views of all parties associated with the brand. We encourage everyone to research all things heard live or via archive for edification purposes. Discretion is advised.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
Help keep the show on the air. If you want to help, you can send your donation through PayPal. The email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com or through Cash App, $Sal Showtime. Thanks for your support.
And it's Yah, our righteousness. And
there we go. Yah, our
Ben
righteousness.
Yisrael. Right. My name is YHWHudah Ben Yisrael. So let me know when you're ready for me to start, Sal.
All right, we can start right now, brother. The floor is yours, man. Go ahead.
Okay. Again, to the audience, Yah bless. I'm going to first put forth the chronological order of the book of Daniel, because, again, as the book of remembrance, the so-called Old Testament, Genesis through Malachi, the word of Yah of hosts has been attacked by the illuminated Edomite coming up through time. And that's going to come out later on, too. Depending on how far I get, I'm going to do my best to get as much in as possible. Sal said we had a little technical difficulty, so we're just a little bit behind schedule. But whatever I don't finish tonight, I'll finish on the 7th of March, which is this coming Sabbath day. We do a session every month, once a month, and the new session will play 11 o'clock EST, Eastern Standard Time, on the 7th of March, 11 a.m., and afterwards on the Q&A, we have a live Q&A. I'll finish whatever I don't get a chance to finish tonight in the book of Daniel for those who are listening and want to pick up if I don't get a chance to finish. Now, again, this is understanding and knowledge that Yah has given me over a period of time, not because I'm better than anybody else or, exalted over anybody, but because he wants his word to be known. And this book of Daniel is, as all the prophetic books and the historical books, because all the books are not prophetic, like Nehemiah, Ezra, okay, they're basically historical accounts, the book of Job, so on. But this book of Daniel is very pertinent and very important, because without the book of Daniel, we wouldn't even know where we are in time. Okay, so now here's the chronological order of the book of Daniel. And remember always that the book has been attacked by the illuminated Edomite coming up through time. Okay, the first chapter is correct. That's chapter number 1 in the chronological order. Then it would be 1136 to 1210, 11th chapter starting at verse 36 to chapter 12 ending at verse 10. Again, that's a partial vision I'm going to get into in a little bit, and that was the first vision, and I'll talk about that when I get into it, okay? Then after 1136 to 1210 Daniel, then it's chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 7, chapter 8, and then after 8, then it's chapter 12, verse 11, verse 12, and verse 13. It's chapter 12, 11, 12, and 13th verse. Then after that, it's chapter 5, and then chapter 9. And then after chapter 9, it's chapter 10, verse 1 through 1135. Okay, chapter 10, verse 1 through 1135. And then after that is chapter 6. Okay? So now I'll get started because, again, I've got 11 to 11.3 right before chapter 6, but that's talking about the advent of the Greek kingdom, but I'll get to that. Okay, so I'm going back to chapter 1. And again, this is when, as it says, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, not king, that's some of Esau's, the illuminated Edomites nonsense, but governor or prince or captain of Yehudah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. Okay, and Yah gave Jehoiakim, the governor of Yehudah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of Yah, which he carried into the land of Shinar, or Babylon, right, to the house of his idol. Okay, and you noticed I'm substituting what was initially there, because you only got one creator, and we usually look at the term G-O-D as in reference to the creator, and it's only one, and that's Yah of hosts. So in actuality, you had idol or image here initially, okay, because anytime you see G-O-D in lowercase, that's what it's in reference to. All right, and Nebuchadnezzar, or he brought the vessels unto the treasure house of his idol. And again, Nebuchadnezzar spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the governor's seed, right, because this is Israel, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well-favored and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge and understanding science, and such as had an ability in them to stand in Nebuchadnezzar, or the king's palace of Babylon, whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them a daily provision of his meat and of the wine which he drank, okay, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before him, Nebuchadnezzar. Now again, I stressed the king's meat and what he drank, because some people think that what I'm getting ready to read, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were vegetarians. They were not. They just didn't eat the meat that Nebuchadnezzar was eating, because evidently it was unclean. And they didn't drink what he drank, okay, for the same purposes. And those of us of Yah righteousness, we do that to this day here. Okay, again, verse 6. Now among these were the children of Yehudah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, and unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names. For he gave unto Daniel the name of Belteshazzar, and to Hananiah of Shadrach, and unto Mishael, Meshach, and unto Azariah, Abednego. Again, just like today, we don't have our names. We got the names of our captors, in the nations, in the societies that we have been driven to, being the children of Israel, to the four corners of the earth. Verse 8. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself, okay? Because he was, again, in harmony with Yah, totally submissive to the will of Yah, all right, and to the menu of Yah, as was Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And again, if you go to Ezekiel chapter 17, these are the only 4 of that initial captivity. And again, this captivity began in 606. That's when Nebuchadnezzar came and got many of the descendants out of Yehudah, Benjamin, and Lewi. Okay, because again, when you deal with the 10 tribes of Israel, they had already been taken out many years earlier, and that started back in 741 BCE, as we see in 1 Chronicles chapter 5, with the tribe of Gad, Reuben, and the half tribe of Manasseh that were on the other side of the river Jordan. They had been taken out by Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria, or Pul, Tiglath-Pileser III, or Pul. And he took those 2.5 tribes out. Of the 10 tribes then, all of them were taken out up into the land of the Medes, as we see in 1 Chronicles chapter 5. Now, the bulk of the other 7.5 tribes were taken out by Shalmaneser III, okay, in that Yah brought him in 725 BCE. And Shalmaneser III, after the siege of about 3 years, a little better, the remainder of the 10 tribes, the 7.5 tribes, fell, and he started to carry them up into the land of the Medes by the river Gozan and Habor. He started the carrying away, Shalmaneser III, in 722 BCE. And then in 721, he died. Sargon II took his place, and he finished off carrying the bulk of those 7.5 tribes up into the land of the Medes. But as we see in 2 Chronicles chapter 30, also in 2 Chronicles chapter 34, and it's 100 years difference between those two chapters, you had a remnant of 6.5 tribes that escaped. Evidently, all of Dan was taken. But of those 6.5 tribes remaining, you had a remnant that escaped, as it tells us in 2 Chronicles chapter 30, out of the hands of the kings of Assyria. They came back in on their land, but they never came back to Yah. And that's chapter 3, Jeremiah, the book of Jeremiah, verse 7. For those of you who are privy to the book, hopefully you've seen that. Okay, but now getting back here to the book of Daniel. So Daniel, again, he found favor, verse 9, in the sight of the prince of the eunuchs. Okay, and because he and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, commonly, called by the Chaldeans, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they all were totally committed to Yah. As I said, they didn't go into a covenant with Nebuchadnezzar. They were the only 4 that didn't. And if you go to Ezekiel chapter 17, you possibly can see there why I say that. The rest of that captivity went into a covenant with Nebuchadnezzar. But these 4 were determined to obey the law of Yah and stay in submission to Yah. And so they asked the prince of the eunuchs, of which, as it says in verse 10, and the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed you meat and your drink, for why should he see your faces worse liking than the children which are of your sort? Then shall ye make me endanger my head to the king. Because Daniel had asked that they be absolved from eating these things and drinking these things that were given to them to eat and drink. And so then, verse 11, then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse, vegetation to eat, and water to drink. So for this period of time, rather than to eat the meat of Nebuchadnezzar, they did, go for a period of time vegetarian. All right? And that's just 10 days to be proven. Then let our countenances be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat. See, they're the ones that went into a covenant with Nebuchadnezzar. And as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he consented to them in this matter and proved them 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, their countenances appeared fair and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of Nebuchadnezzar's meat, or the king's meat. Thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse, vegetation. As for these 4 children, Yah gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions, and it says dreams. Okay, but again, we know now that Daniel got visions from Yah, and I'm going to get into that in a second. Now, at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar, and Nebuchadnezzar communed with them, and among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before Nebuchadnezzar, the king. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm. And Daniel continued even unto the first year of King Cyrus, and we'll get to that hopefully later. Chapter 2. And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, and again, this is the second year of Nebuchadnezzar being co-regent with his father Nebuchadnezzar. This is not the second year from Nebuchadnezzar when he became sole king himself. and he became co-regent with his father Nabopolassar in 606 BCE. So this is the second year from that, and from the carrying away of this captives of Yehudah, Benjamin, and Luai up into Babylon. Okay, and it says Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams. Okay, but now, matter of fact, I forgot I'm doing this chronologically. So now I've got to go to 1136, not here, because this is not the first vision. Okay, the way Esau, the illuminated Edomite, set this up, it looks like this is the first vision, but it's not. Okay, now after chapter 1, you got to go to 1136 to 1210 Daniel, and that's where I'm going now. And this is the vision that the illuminated Edomites have tampered with. They've removed the opening of this vision. How much they took away, we don't know, okay? But again, this is the first vision, and I'm going to explain that in a little bit why this is the first vision. But I'm going to pick this up at 1136 Daniel, okay? And it says what, Yah had them leave was this. And the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every idol, okay, or so-called God, and shall speak marvelous things against Yah, the strong one of strong ones, okay? And again, when I say this like this, you've got to remember, some of you out there, I know you know, many or however many might not, from the 4th to the 9th century CE AD, and I know these were Edomites because, again, that's who has translated this book coming up through time. It's only basically been 3 other transliterations, Marchand out of France, and I'm pretty sure he was Edomite, and then you have Wycliffe and Tyndall. They got rid of, who was it? I think it was Wycliffe. They got rid of him, destroyed all of his transliterations, burned them up, and hanged him and burned him up. Tyndall, they basically, his translations didn't come forward either. But it's been the illuminated Edomite that has basically translated this book coming up through time. But you had these Edomites called Mezerites from the 4th to the 9th century CE AD, and it's somewhere in there where these people called Mezerites, and I'm certain they were Edomites, they took the name of Yah out of this book of remembrance. And again, for those of you who don't know it, it's the book of remembrance, Malachi chapter 3, 15th to the 18th verse, Genesis through Malachi. They took Yah's name out of over 6,800 places from Genesis through Malachi. So that's why you'll hear me say Yah when you don't actually see that. Okay, they replaced it with El initially and Adonai. El evolved into God, which is, as we've said in the past, is just the archaic German word gut that just means good, okay? And they started equating the Creator as God or good, and so they replaced El with God, and they replaced Adonai with the term Lord. So when you see Lord or God in all caps or initial cap, that's where Yah was. Okay, so I replace it when I get to these places with the name of Yah. Okay, so again, this king who was to speak marvelous things against Yah, I'm in verse 36, chapter 11, which is, again, is the first vision that Daniel got, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished, for that is determined shall be done. Okay, neither shall he, this king, right, that was going to speak marvelous things against Yah, right, and would prosper until the indignation be accomplished, neither shall he regard the strong one of his fathers or the idols of his fathers. So this is something new. To let you know this is something new right there, right? Nor the desire of women, which is the forerunner to celibacy, nor regard any idol, for he shall magnify himself above all. We understand this is talking about Octavian or Augustus Caesar. Okay? Again, he became the first emperor of Rome and eventually exalted himself to the stature of divinity, made himself a god. And that's when time changed, and I'll get to that. Hopefully I'll get to that in chapter 7, Daniel, okay, where it's talking about Augustus or Octavian over there. But this is talking about him. If you've got a good grasp of history, or you've got books or some, where you can go to history and really check this out. We've got books here that substantiate this. One book is called Augustus Caesar's World. I've had it now for some years, and it substantiates this. It's got a chapter, matter of fact, just about the last chapter in it, and the last chapter is called Augustus Divus, or Augustus the God. And this is when Octavian, who was the grandnephew of Julius Caesar, he rose to be the first emperor of Rome. And like I said, when he got in his later years, he didn't have the desire of women. He started this thing called the Vestal Virgins, okay, which consisted of young virgin Roman, young virgins who he would pick to be part of, be into this group called the Vestal Virgins, which is the forerunner of the nuns. Okay, so again, verse 38. Now, you got to remember, when you're reading this book of remembrance, a lot of times it's progressive, and definitely this way it is progressive in time, okay, when you're reading prophecies. Okay, now when you get to verse 38, it's going to say, and it says, but in his estate shall he honor the strong one or idol of forces or weaponry, okay, which again, that has come down all the way to this day, where they honor weaponry, force. And a idol whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver and with precious stones and pleasant things. Now, this is progressive, because now this has left, okay, Octavian, Augustus, and now it's coming into Constantine. Okay, verse 39, thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange idol, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. And if you know the story, Constantine in 311, he acknowledged Christianity and legalized it. Okay, even though now Christianity was conceived of by the illuminated Edomites. Okay, but it was Constantine who acknowledged it and legalized it in 311 when they brought it to him, when the illuminated Edomites caught the Roman Empire, not kingdom, but Roman Empire, the first empire of the fourth kingdom, when they caught it in a situation of, in a schism, okay, in a diversified situation, because you had Maximus, Maxentius, and Constantine all vying trying to become emperor, okay, so it was in a diverse situation, and the illuminated Edomite, he preys upon situations of this nature, just like what we see today, but I'll get into that later on. So now, when you look at this verse 39, when it says, this strange idol that they would acknowledge and increase with glory, okay? And again, remember what it said in verse 38, and an idol whom his fathers knew not, so that's something new, okay? He shall honor with gold, silver, with precious stones, and pleasant things. Thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange idol, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. And he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide, okay, that's a key word, divide, the land for gain, all right? And again, this is in the fourth kingdom. That's what this is talking about, because we know Octavian, again, he was the first emperor of Rome, all right? And so Rome didn't come on the scene until the fourth kingdom, insofar as rising to the power to be the first empire in the fourth kingdom. We know Rome appears in the Greek kingdom, in the latter days of the Greek kingdom. Okay, Rome started to become a power, but it didn't actually become this power until the fourth kingdom. Okay, that's why again, when people want to say Rome is the fourth kingdom, of earth, again, it started in the latter part of the third kingdom, and that'll come up later on too when we get to the early part of chapter 11, which is in the Greek kingdom, but I'll get to that. Okay, so now this new idol, something new, okay? Again, you call it the New Testament. That's what the Illuminated Edomite tagged it, as the New Testament. And as we said before here at Yah Righteousness to everybody over the years, when you read Deuteronomy chapter 32, Moses, okay, Moshe as I call him, Moses, he was told by Yah, and he told the children of Israel that what was to come, okay? And if you read chapter 32 Deuteronomy, Moses told the children of Israel at that time, and this was in 1400 BCE, right before he died, and before the children of Israel came over into the land of Canaan. And he told them, he said, you're going to cross this Jordan. You're going to go into this land. And first you're going to inherit the blessing. You're going to get wells you didn't dig, houses you didn't build. You're going to wax and rich in silver and gold. But as time goes by, your offspring are going to turn away from Yah, and they're going to start to worship new idols, newly raised up, not Yah, but devils. And again, remember, this was 1400 BCE, right before he died and before the children of Israel went into the land of Canaan, okay? All right, and again, this is approximately about 800 years, not quite, but right around 800 years before the first kingdom of man, which was the Babylonian kingdom, okay, which basically began in 606, you could say, okay, if you want to say 605, when Nebuchadnezzar actually became, king himself, when as I said earlier, when his father passed in 605. He was co-regent, though, with his father Nebuchadnezzar in 606. Okay, so now when it says here in verse 39, they were going to acknowledge this new strange idol, increase its glory in the earth, okay, and they would cause this new strange idol to rule over many. That right there is the history of Christianity. You didn't have any Christianity before the fourth kingdom of man. Simple as that, okay? And again, I'm going to talk about that when I get to chapter 2, Daniel, right? Okay, so now what does it say here in verse 39? And she'll divide the land for gain. That began under Charlemagne, okay? Because up until the time of Charlemagne, you had one emperor. But during the time of Charlemagne and after, it broke out where you had a diversified group of kings or emperors, if you will, of other nations. And that's when they started to divide the land for gain. Instead of having one emperor over the whole thing, you had a multitude of kings. King of Sweden, king of Greece, king of Germany, king of Britain, king of France, king of Denmark, and so on and so forth, king of Italy, and so on and so forth, right? That's dividing the land for gain. Verse 40, and at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him. And again, this king of the south is Islam. And if you go into history, you'll see in the 10th century CE AD, all right, the 900s, this is when Islam started to push at the Christians, okay, and the Christian kings who were in the north, in Europe, all right. Islam started to rear its head in 622. And from how we see it here at Yah Righteousness, the Illuminated Edomite created Islam too, all right, to be the antithesis to the thesis of Christianity. And again, that's called the dialectic. And the Illuminated Edomite got that from Yah, all right, in regards to a thesis and antithesis that you control both to bring about the desired result, or the synthesis. Okay, so Islam rose its head in 622 CE AD. And then, like I said, about a little over 300 years later, they barred, the Caliph at the time, barred the Christians from coming through the Holy Land and coming even that way, and basically cut off their route, per se, to the Orient or to the East. And for those of you out there that have a decent grasp of history, you ever heard of Marco Polo, okay, that lived in the 14th century CE AD to 1300s, and they give him credit to finding a route to the Orient because they couldn't come through the Holy Land anymore. when the Islamic Caliph, the Muslims barred them from coming that way. All right? And this is the king of the south pushing at the king of the north or the kings of the north. Or you follow me? And then as you see, when you get into the 11th century, the 1000s CEADs, this spawned the Crusades. As I said to a person a few weeks ago, Sal was on the phone, I'm not going to go into that historical aspect. Those of you out there, I'm pointing you and directing you to it because we're under time constraints here. So I'm pointing you to it. You taking notes. You go into the history and actually read it. You'll see that Islam started to, like I said, push, as the prophecy says. They barred the Christians from coming that way through the Holy Land and coming that way. So now, after a little while, the Christians got stirred up, these kings of Christianity. They gathered their people together, and this is what precipitated what's called the Crusades. And you had like about 9 Crusades over 200 and something plus years. And you'll see that, the time, like I said, it started in the 11th century, CEAD, the 1000s, and I think the last one was like in the 1300s. But you had about 9 crusades, okay? Like I said, you check that out, and you'll see the Crusaders, the Christian Crusaders, they're the king or the kings of the north. Islam is the king of the south, okay? Now I'm in verse 40, and it says, when the king of the south pushed, or Islam pushed at the kings of the kings of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, with horsemen, with many ships. That's the Crusaders coming out of Europe. And he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. Verse 41, he shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. Okay? And again, this is the king of the south that this is talking about, the he here in 41, right? But these shall escape out of his hand, out of the hand of the Islamic, purveyors of Islam, right? The Muslims, the Edomites, right? Because it was Edom that came up with Christianity and Islam, but they're the ones who have created this diverse situation, and I'll talk about that some more when we get to chapter 7, Daniel. Okay, the Moabites and the chief of the children of Ammon. So it's letting us know that you had some of the descendants out of Ammon, okay, who went into Islam, but the chief of the children of Ammon did not. All right, verse 42. He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries. And while I'm here, the chief of the children of Ammon could very well be China, okay, because the Chinese did not become Muslims. All right. But, that's a question mark, right? Verse 42, he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries. Okay, this is the king of the south, Islam. And the land of Egypt shall not escape. And we know Egypt basically today is Islamic. Quite naturally, you've got some Christians there. They call themselves Coptic Christians, right? But basically today, Egypt has been, from that time, for the last, like I said, the last 1,000 years or plus, they've been Islamic basically. But what does it say? Verse 43, right? Egypt did not escape, but he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. This is Islam. And the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. We know the Libyans are basically Muslims, Islamic today, as well as many of the Ethiopians are Islamic too. Right? Basically the governments, right? For sure. Verse 44, but tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Now, verse 44, when it says tidings out of the east, is going to trouble the faction of Islam, the Islamic Muslims. When you go into history, look up Genghis Khan and the Mongols, and you will see that in the 14th century, they were coming towards Islam, and this is when they clashed, all right? And that's the tidings out of the east. And Islam kept, put a stop to the Mongolian march, coming westward toward Islam. they put a stop on them. Okay, and history bears this out. And again, tidings out of the east and out of the north, and again, that's the Christian Crusaders coming out of the north. They troubled, the Muslims. Therefore, Islam shall go forth with great fury to destroy, utterly to make away many. Verse 45, Islam shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Now, what is that talking about? They're there to this day. The El-As Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. And the Dome of the Rock sits exactly where the first two temples of Yah sit. The temple that Solomon and Hiram, the king of Tyre, built, and the temple that Zerubbabel and the group that came back after the 70 years in Babylon in 536 BCE, the temple that they eventually did erect. I'll get to that later, too, in more detail. Okay? And those two tabernacles of Islam sit in the glorious holy mountain, okay, in Jerusalem to this very day. And they've been there for centuries, okay, because the king of the south of Islam ruled, controlled the Holy Land for centuries. They didn't actually lose their grip on the Holy Land until the First World War. After the First World War, that's when the Illuminated Edomite took control of the Holy Land, in the guise of England, Britain, okay? But that's another story in itself, too, and I've talked about that. Those who are plugged into Yah Righteous know I talked about that in the past. Okay, you see what it says here in verse 45? He said the tabernacles, plural, okay, of his palace, between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. And again, the seas are the Mediterranean Sea and the Dead Sea. And if you look at, a map, you'll see that Jerusalem sits between the Mediterranean and the Dead Sea or the South Sea. Okay? Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. We're in the midst of that right now. Okay? The Illuminati Edomite has attacked Islam, through this daughter of Babylon, the United States of America, that he set up and controls. England, that he set up and controls, right? France, that he, and again, the Illuminated Edomite didn't actually set England up, but he took control of it, okay? And that happened in 1815. I've talked about that in the past with the situation with Napoleon, but that's another story. I don't want to get far off. Okay, again, and he got control of France with the Great French Revolution in 1789 that the Illuminated Edomite fostered, 6 years after the discovery of the protocols of the learned elders of Zion in 1783. Minutes of a meeting that were on the body of this dead courier that Yah hit with a lightning bolt, killed him dead, and that's how the Bavarian police or the German authorities started to find out about this conspiracy, this secret organization called the Illuminati. But now I'm back here in verse 45, and what does it say? Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. And again, that's, as I just said, this is what we're watching. We're watching the nations that the Illuminati Israelite, or should I say, the Illuminati Edomite controls. Again, America, Britain, France, Germany, they are, to a degree, some more so, America and Britain to a more degree than Germany and France, they're attacking Islam. And again, we just saw them get rid of Gaddafi, about 9 years ago, or close to it now, 8 to 9 years ago. And Libya's been in a mess ever since. We saw them attack Iraq. The initial attack took place, you could say, in 1990 under Herbert Walker Bush. And America attacked them real egregiously. And again, they attacked them in 1990, and many Iraqi citizens and children died over the next 12 years up into 2003, 12 to 13 years when they attacked them again and got rid of, deposed Saddam Hussein, who was, again, one of their one of their puppets that they set up in Iraq back in 1979. The CIA, some of the games they play. But they disposed him when he, in 2003, when he realized in actuality in 2000, he knew he had been put in the trick bag. Iraq stopped dealing with the dollar, and that's when the Illuminated Edomite threw America and Britain said, we got to go get him and take control of these oil wells too. And so that's when that happened. So we see that. We see that with Bashir Assad in Syria. That's still going on today. They haven't killed Bashir Assad, but they've basically displaced him to a great degree. Syria will never be what it was prior to this attack by America and Britain and put forth by this Illuminated Edomite that controls America and Britain. And when I say this, always understand you've got a cabal of Illuminated Edomites, okay? They're controlling the major nations today, but it's a cabal. It's like the five families of New York, okay? And now, as Yah had said in Jeremiah chapter 25, they're drinking of the cup, okay, that that Yah took around, that they created, and they took around and the nations became drunk on. Now they are assuredly drinking of that cup. Whose mind said it was not to drink of the cup. Because, again, you get recompense what you put out. Divide and conquer is what they use. I'll get to that a little later on down the line. And now Yah is, you reap what you sow. And now they are drinking of that cup. They've become drunken, and they're being divided, just like they've divided everybody else coming up through these last little over 2,000 years. You can start back with Alexander in the Greek kingdom. But I'll get to that a little bit later too. All right, so now what they call verse 1 in chapter 12 is really a continuation, as you see. And at that time, and what time is that? When the king of the south, or Islam, is coming to its end, right? And at that time shall Michael or Michael stand up, the great prince. This is an angel, one of the chief angels, if not the chief, which stands for the children of Israel, all right? And there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. All right? And this is what we're, witnessing right here today, okay, with the economic collapse, the environmental collapse, the ecological collapse, okay? They're mingling seed. Again, I'll get that in the next vision that Daniel got, the second one that starts over there in chapter 2. Dealing with Nebuchadnezzar's dream, but I'm going to get to that. Again, we see this coronavirus that the Illuminated Edomite and the Skull and Bone Boys have unleashed on the people of the world, specifically to slow down China and Russia, Iran, these nations that have grouped together and are presenting a major threat to the hegemony of the dollar. Okay, remember what I just said about Saddam Hussein in 2000 when he stopped using the American dollar and started accepting euros for his oil, for the Iraqi oil. That's when the Illuminated Edomite of the West that controls, again, which we know here is the House of Rothschild, that's when they say we got to go get him. And that's when they went and got him under George W. Bush, a skull and bone boy, like his daddy and his granddaddy, Prescott Bush. And that's when they went and got Saddam, okay, because he stopped using the dollar and started using the euro, okay, upsetting the economic structure that this Illuminated Edomite of the West, the House of Rothschild, has set up. And so with that, right, they went in, disposed him, and now we see these nations like China, Russia, like I said, Venezuela, Iran, South Africa, Brazil is supposed to be in there, but I don't know after they got rid of Lula and, brought in this Bolsonaro, who I'm pretty sure is an Edomite. He's been aligned with him, so I don't know exactly where he's going to stand. But they used to, he used to be part of this, they called the BRIC nations, B-R-I, and I always say B-R-I-I-C. And C for China, the two I's for India and Iran, R for Russia, and B for Brazil. and also the S, BRICS, and the S is for South Africa. These nations are coming together because they're not taking this dollar, okay, this American dollar, because they know it's worthless. They just run in paper. It doesn't have any intrinsic value, okay, and it really hasn't had any intrinsic value since August 1971 when they took the gold backing from the dollar. They hooked the dollar up with the oil. They had control of all the oil reserves in different countries, and the only way you could purchase oil, you had to use the dollar. That's why it became known as the petrodollar. But now, like I said, Saddam started to break away. Gaddafi was getting ready to break away. That's why they went and got him. And that's why I say you've had turmoil in Libya ever since. And this is this time of trouble, never been since it's been a nation. And Islam coming to its end. We see this in these different nations where Islam was preeminent. Now it's being relegated into, it's basically being destroyed because, as I've said in the past, we can see Allah has no power, okay? Just like we can see, Christianity and its main idol, this YHWHudah the Anointed, or as most people call it, Jesus, the Christ, right? He has no power, okay? Because the people have been in these idolatries since their inception in this fourth kingdom of man, and people have been suffering all the way to this day. And now with this coronavirus that the illuminated Edomite has unleashed, right, it's a time of trouble never been since it's been a nation. You've got about 1,500 species that are extinct, okay, and you got your pollinators on the edge of extinction, okay. Everything is in turmoil, and this is Yah bringing all this out to the understanding of the people of the world, and this is why, again, he has this situation happening here tonight. Okay, so now, what else does it say? And there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. That's the time we're living in now. We know we got plenty of wars. It's been wars, through the centuries, right? Together with the economic collapse, the ecological collapse, the environmental collapse, right? We're in a time of trouble never been, okay? And at that time, thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. And again, these are for the descendants of Israel who have sought Yah, found Yah, because if you seek Yah, he's going to let you find him. That's in Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 45. And again, if you sought Yah, again, Zephaniah 1:6, okay, for those who have sought Yah, right? And in Zephaniah 1:6, it talks about those who have not sought Yah, okay, or inquired about Yah, right? And you've got most of your Israelites today have not done that. And as of 1896, Yah could be found because the seal came off the book, what I'm getting ready to read about in a minute, right? And it says, everybody that's found written in the book, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. And again, as it says in chapter 44, Yeshaya, Ezekiel 37, Hosea chapter 6 at the top, again, and specifically in Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 44, when those of Israel who have sought Yah in some shape, form, or fashion, looking for truth with all their heart. If you're looking for truth with all your heart, because we know we are constantly lied and deceived to this day in these nations that we reside in this fourth kingdom of man. We definitely know that here in this furnace of affliction, 48:9, Isaiah, Yeshaya, this daughter of Babylon, okay? We're constantly lied to and deceived, misled, right? So if you're looking for truth, if you're looking for righteousness, if you're looking for equity, because we know we don't get any equitous treatment, okay? That's what spawns all your movements of Me Too and civil rights movements, right? Black Lives Matter, okay? These are Israelites who don't understand that they're Israel, don't understand really what's going on, and so they can be manipulated into these, these protests, these marches that are not going to do any good, which they haven't done any good. Okay, as I've said in the past, I'm 69 years old. I was born in 1950. I've been witnessing marching just all my life at some point in time. And here we are in 2020. What have we gotten from all these marches other than wearing out shoes and poking holes in the air with our fists? We haven't gotten anything from them, okay? And again, we're never going to get anything in this society because we cannot mix with the iron. And I'll get to that in the next chapter 2, in the next vision, the second vision that Daniel got. Okay, again, and you see what it says here in verse 2, many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. Now, a lot of people think this is talking about people coming up out of a literal 6-foot hole in the dirt or a cement casket or sepulcher, and that's not talking about that at all. Most of your Israelites today who are scattered to the four corners of the earth are walking dead. They got eyes open and can't see. They got ears made heavy where they can't hear, and they got a heart that's fat where they can't understand. And if you want to get the real gist of that, go to Isaiah chapter 6, where Yah told Isaiah Yeshaya what he was going to do to the children of Israel. He was going to make us literally zombies, walking dead. And that's what we see today, those of us who can see, who've awakened and sought Yah out. And he has literally allowed us to start to see and understand and to truly hear. And we see majority of our Israelite brothers and sisters, wherever they are on the face of this earth, caught in lies and deception, caught in religions of whatever kind. Because all religions are wrong because they come out of the heart of a man. And that's your Judaism that spun out of Hasidism. Okay, as I said on the last time we were on, Hasidism began in 300 BCE, started by the illuminated Edomites, and they weren't totally illuminated at the time. I'll talk about that later on too. Okay, and Hasidism was Hasidism all the way up until they came up with the letter J in the midst of the 17th century CE. It became Judaism then. All right. Christianity, as I just said, you understand, in this first vision, it was conceived of, it was something new, as they call it, okay? It didn't exist before the fourth kingdom of man. You had no Christianity, all right? Islam, okay, 622 CE AD. You had no Islam prior to 622 CE AD. It was conceived of, these are religions, just like Buddhism, Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, Scientology, religions, okay? And then you've got all kind of different diverse parts of these religions, you know, different sects of these religions, and that's more diversification. And remember that diversification, that term, because I'm going to come across this in the next, the second vision Daniel got. All right, so I'm back here again in chapter 12, right, verse 2, and it says, many shall sleep in the dust of the earth, many of them shall awake. It doesn't say all, because it's talking about Israel, because we're the only people that's been put to sleep by Yah. We were cut off, okay, because of what our forefathers did by turning their backs to Yah and desiring to be like the heathen rather than to stay with he who creates the king, the founder of living waters and the spirit and creator of all things. They didn't appreciate their position because they were like children in understanding. They hadn't become adults yet in understanding, okay? And so, again, it's talking about those of us who would seek Yah out when Yah takes this seal, as I'm getting ready to read in the next few verses, off the book of remembrance, because he sealed it. And he's telling Daniel this here now. This is, again, why this is the first vision that Daniel got. And, again, I'm going to come back to that theme again and again. All right? So now it says some are going to awake to everlasting life. That's not talking about one person living forever. Okay? It's no such thing. The seeds live on, not one human being. When Yah says he is the first and the last, like in the 43rd chapter of Yeshaya, Isaiah, and in other places, that means just that. If one person lived forever, then Yah's a liar. He's not the last. seeds live on. Okay? Not one human being. That's why when you go to Genesis chapter 15, Yah told Abraham, I'm going to multiply your seed like the stars of heaven. If you can count the stars, you can count your seed. And the reason why he did that with Abraham, because Abraham was totally committed and submitted to him and obeyed him explicitly. And that's the kind of spirit, that's the kind of heart that Yah is looking for always. And that's why he said, I'm going to preserve your seed. Abraham's dead. Abraham been dead for centuries, millennia. Okay, over 2 millennia. But he's got a lot of seed here on this earth today. Okay? And some of them are going to wait. And this is talking about the children of Israel, his descendants. But again, all Habarus or Hebrews, as is commonly, characterized, come out of Abraham, because he was the first Habaru or Hebrew. He crossed over. And as we said in the past, you've got, 11 nations of Habarus, Hebrews, 11 nations. They all come out of Abraham. Except, let me retract that, except 2. 2 of them come out of his nephew Lot. But they're not going to exist in the future. They're going out. And that's your Ammonites and Moabites, because they're seeds of incest. Okay? But they're Habarus too, because Lot was a Habaru, the nephew of Abraham. But those other 9 Hebrew nations or Habaru nations come out of Abraham. He had 6 sons by Keturah. He had Isaac and Ishmael. Okay? And we know out of Isaac or Isaac, he had Esau and Jacob. And Jacob became Israel or Yisrael. Okay? So again, and what does it say? And some are going to awake to shame and everlasting contempt. And that's, I know a few of those already who have awakened to the fact they're Israel. They're no longer here. And if they're no longer here because they've transitioned, if they're no longer here, then that means they never were totally submitted and committed to Yah, because Yah is in the process of bringing back the strongest seeds, and I always say seeds and eggs, which includes the women, to bring them back, to plant us in the land of Israel, that we bear roots downward and branches upward. Okay, that he's going to bring forth the holy children, Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 59, out of the strongest ones of us. And the strongest ones of us, in other words, not in muscles, okay, but the strongest ones of us who are totally committed and submitted to Yah with all our heart and soul. Okay? Now, that's who are going to awaken to everlasting life. Those seeds will be restored, and those seeds will be resurrected, if you want to use that term, or raised up. Okay? Just like what Isaiah says over in chapter 26 of his book. He said he knew his dead body would live again in his seed, because Isaiah, Yeshaya, he's got seed and possibly eggs, children, sons and daughters. I know he's got sons still on this earth to carry on his name, to resurrect his name. And that's the names that you'll find written in Yah's book, because we resurrect or raise up these names out of this book. Just like I say my name is YHWHudah. Okay, you see YHWHudah in this book, right? So that's, found written in the book, huh? Okay, and again, you see the same thing talked about in chapter 44, Isaiah, Yeshaya. Verse 3, and they that be wise, okay, and what constitutes one being wise? Those who are totally committed and submitted in following the law of Yah with all their heart and soul. Simple as that. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 2. Okay, and those who be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. Okay, because they're not eating unclean things. Like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah didn't eat the unclean meat and drink the unclean wine of Nebuchadnezzar. They refused to do that. So they'd rather be vegetarians for a while. And I say for a while because it's going to come up later on if I get that far. okay, in chapter 10, Daniel, that Daniel was not a vegetarian, neither was Hananiah, Mishael, or Azariah. Okay? And they shall turn many, okay, they shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they shall turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. And again, when you see this written this way, characterized, and they that turn many to righteousness, we can't turn anybody. We can only direct. And if you read Ezekiel chapter 18 and discern what's saying there, everybody has to turn themselves. We can direct them, but we can't turn anybody. You can only turn yourself, because you can't change anybody. You can only change yourself. And this is paramount in Ezekiel chapter 18. Okay? And again, verse 3, the rest of verse 3, and they that direct many to righteousness, right? And basically establish righteousness, the way of Yah, they're going to shine as the stars forever and ever, okay? And that's the seed going on, you understand, forever, okay? Just like what Yah told Abraham in Genesis chapter 15, like he told David and made an everlasting covenant with him and his seed, like he told Zadok, made an everlasting covenant with him and his seed, and like Yah is going to do with each and every one of those 13 tribes of Israel. It's going to be some of those 13 tribes, males and females, that's going to return to Yah. And from those who do, Yah is going to, embellish those who return of those 13 tribes, and they will blossom into the fullness of those tribes. But only the strongest ones, those who are totally committed and submitted to Yah with all their heart and soul. Again, Deuteronomy 30, verse 2. Verse 4, but you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book even to the time of the end. Okay? Now again, this is the first vision Daniel got. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased, as we see it today. Has been and is being increased. Okay? And again, I could go on about that, but that should be self-explanatory. But again, this is the first vision Daniel got, and the angel that's standing on the water could very well have been Gabriel. Okay? And I'll get to that later on. That was doing the talking. Okay? And again, he's telling him to shut up the words of the book, to shut up the words and seal the book even to the time of the end. And again, it was not a lot of people privy at all to the book of Daniel. And that's paramounted in chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9, and chapter 2, and I'm going to bring that out in a minute, or should I say in the second vision that Daniel got, Nebuchadnezzar's dream with the interpretation. So this is the first vision Daniel got, and now he's being told, seal up the book. He's being told this word that you're getting is not for everybody, all right? And so now he says, verse 5, then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood two other angels, one on one side of the bank of the river, another on the other side of the bank of the river, because the angel that was talking to him, that was, more likely than not Gabriel, who was dressed in linen, standing on the waters of the river, who was talking, one of these angels, as it says, right, said to the angel clothed in linen, standing on the waters of the river, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And Daniel said he heard, verse 7, the man clothed in linen, or the angel clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that lives forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and a half. And that's 2,500 years. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Now again, we know from Hosea 6 that, as we see in Isaiah chapter 6, when Yah, as I mentioned a little earlier, when Yah told Isaiah, leave these people's eyes open but don't let them see, make their ears heavy where they cannot hear, make their hearts fat where they can't, in other words, lest they see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand in their heart, and convert. In other words, do an about face back to me, and start praying to me, you understand, making supplication unto me. And when he told Isaiah Yeshaya that, Yeshaya said, oh, Yah, how long? How long? In other words, how long you going to have us like that? And what did Yah say? Till men have been removed far away. Okay, well, that happened, over a period of centuries where Israel, Israel cut themselves off, and that when we get to a certain point in time, you didn't have an Israelite on this earth that knew they were Israel because they were cut off. They had eyes open, like majority of your Israelites today that's walking this earth. They don't know they're Israel. They got eyes open, but they really can't see. Okay? They got ears made heavy. They really can't hear. They've got a heart beating in their chest, but it's been made fat. They cannot understand. That's why you've had many of them in Texas and what's the other place, Minnesota or California, that just stood up here the other day, 2 days ago, 5 and 7 hours trying to vote. Okay? And when they finally got to a lot of these voting machines, they didn't work. And how many times has that happened? That happened, at the last selection and the selection before that and before that. It's all smoke and mirrors, right? But they can't understand that this is an act of futility. All the marching, the Me Too, the protesting, right? Who are they protesting to? The adversary, the main adversaries, okay, that control this nation. But they can't get it through their head that, this is not going to do any good. So they got eyes and can't see. They got ears and can't hear. They got a heart, but they can't understand. And that's those who sleep in the dust of the earth, walking around, but zombies. Can't understand. Okay? Keep, as the Edomite Einstein said, what's the highest act of insanity? Keep doing the same thing over and over, you understand, and nothing's coming of it. And that's what Israel's been doing now, like I said earlier, ever since I've been in the world and before. Okay, you could say since the 1865, right? Supposedly, right? The end of the Civil War, where we were supposedly freed. Okay, so now 2,500 years, and again, this 2,500 years is from the time that Daniel's getting this, okay, when he's getting this vision, all right? Now, as I said earlier, the first vision Daniel got was in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar, which is 604. And I'm going to show you this again in the next vision, the second vision he got, which is over here in Daniel chapter 2, all right? It says in verse 1 of the second chapter, right? It says, in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar, right? Now it's going to talk about this dream with the interpretation, of Nebuchadnezzar. That's the second vision Daniel got. This is the first one that came not long, evidently, before that one, okay? And again, I'm back here in chapter 12, okay? And I'm in, again, it says, time and a half, and when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. And again, that 2,500 years, the second year of Nebuchadnezzar is 604 BCE. When you look at Hosea chapter 6 at the top, it says, after 2 days, Yah would revive us. And that's not actually exact in how that's written. What it should say, and I'm pretty sure it did say in the original text, after 2 days, those of the children of Israel that sought Yah, that seek Yah, he would revive. Because I just read to you where it says here in verse 2, many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. Doesn't say all. Because most Israelites are not going to awake. Because when you go to that chapter 6, Isaiah, Yeshaya, it's going to tell you there when Yeshaya asked Yah, how long is this going to be? And Yah said to him, until men have been removed far away. That's the first stipulation. The second stipulation was, and it's a great forsaking in the midst of the land of Israel. That didn't really begin till 1948, okay, when the robbers, the descendants of Esau, established the state of Israel. When they did that, they attacked the so-called Palestinians, who are descendants out of the 6.5 tribes of the 10 tribes, but basically out of those 7.5 tribes that escaped out of the hands of the kings of Assyria. 2 Chronicles chapter 30 and chapter 34. And as I said before, remember, it's 100 years difference between those two chapters. And you take both of them and you get the 6.5 tribes of the 7.5 that were left after the 2.5 had been taken out in 741 by Tiglath-Pileser III. Shalmaneser III came in 725. And then in 722 they fell, and he started carrying the bulk of those 7.5 tribes away. He took all the tribe of Dan. But out of those other 6.5 tribes, you had a remnant that escaped. And they came back in on their land, but they never came back to Yah. That's, you remember Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 7. And for those of you who really got a grasp of this book, you understand that that's a fact. They never really came back to Yah. Okay, so now they became the ones who remained in and on the land. Eventually, again, they were running away from Yah. And as it happened with all Israel, they didn't remember that they were Israel anymore. By the time you get to 104 BCE, you didn't have an Israelite on this earth that knew they were Israel. Simple as that. The light had been going out, and it was totally out in 10 BCE. All right. Now, when it says in Hosea 6 at the top, after 2 days, Yah would revive us, those of us who would seek him, okay, in some shape, form, or fashion. And that's Isaiah Yeshaya chapter 65, when Yah said, I am sought of them that sought me not, I'm found of them that asked not for me. Because you can be looking for peace with all your heart, because we don't get any in this fourth kingdom in captivity, because we're in captivity. We don't get any peace. We don't get any righteousness, equity. We don't get any truth. We just get lies and deception, okay, laid on us. And it has many of us looking for these things. But, again, you have only so many that's truly looking for truth and or peace and or righteousness, equity, and or salvation out of this oppressive, demonic, satanic system, this fourth kingdom, diverse kingdom that we live in. All right? And then you get so many looking for the true and living creator. Okay? And if looking for any one of those things or a combination thereof will lead one at some point to this book of remembrance, so-called Old Testament. But then one has to what? As it says in Hosea 6, then we shall know, those of us who awaken out of the dust of the earth, because we have sought Yah, as it says in Hosea 6, just like it says here in Daniel chapter 12, verse 2, then we shall know if we follow on to serve Yah. Because as I said it earlier, and I'll probably say it some more, Deuteronomy 30, verse 2, right? Those of us who awaken to the fact we Israel, those of us who really read this book of remembrance, so-called Old Testament, Genesis through Malachi, which is the new covenant now, 31, Jeremiah, Jeremiah, everybody got to read this time. Because as we see in Malachi chapter 2, the people sought the law in ancient times at the mouth of the priest. That's why Yah put a double curse on the priesthood, the Levites, and the governor and the high priesthood and the governorship. Okay, that a lot of people call king, which is, incorrect. It's the governor, okay, the seed of David, because they turned away from Yah, and they allowed the people to go away from Yah. And for those of you who don't really understand what I'm saying there, it's encapsulated in the 16th chapter of Ezekiel. if you want to read it real concise and precise, what Jerusalem did, okay? But nevertheless, now back here in this chapter 12, right? Again, so those of us who awaken and truly do a 180 convert, an about face, back to Yah, submission and commitment with all our heart and soul, and embrace the law and start to, as we're told in Jeremiah chapter 10, learn not the ways of the heathen, for the customs of the people are vain, worthless. Well, we were raised in the ways of the heathen. That's the curse in Deuteronomy 28, 15 through 67. Okay? So now when we awaken, because we sought Yah out and found him, and we get to reading this book and really studying it and really laying it to heart as we're told to do at the back end of chapter 42, Isaiah, Yeshaya, who will lay it to heart, who will give ear for the time to come? Again, those of us who do that, Yah illuminates more and more and more and more the longer we stay totally committed and submitted in obedience to this law. And so now on this path, he starts to reveal to us more and more. And you get some who awaken to the fact they're Israel. They get so far on the trail, and something that is the way of the heathen they don't want to let go. Something that is in opposition, adversarial to the laws and statutes, ordinances, judgments, commandments, and precepts of Yah. They don't want to let go. And so they hold on to it. And if they continue to hold on to it, because at some point Yah is going to reveal to them, okay, as we see in Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 28, it's line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. Sometimes you get snared in the thing. You think a thing is one way and it's really not. At some point, Yah is going to show you that you were wrong about whatever it is, and you're going to have to acknowledge that. Okay, like we see in Leviticus 26, 40, 41, and 42. We have to acknowledge our iniquity, the iniquity of our fathers and mothers, all the way back to ancient times, starting with our paternal and maternal father and mother. And we have to acknowledge our iniquity, their iniquity, all the way back to ancient times, and accept of our punishment. Because again, Yah dwells, as he says in the 57th chapter of Isaiah Yeshaya, with the contrite and humble spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble and the heart of the contrite. You can't be contrite unless you've sinned. Okay? Just like it says in Exodus chapter 34, 6 and 7 verse, Yah is long-suffering and very merciful. And again, he holds dear the act of redemption for those who acknowledge that they were wrong about something. Okay? That let go of pride and ego and hubrisness, arrogance, okay? But we have to divorce ourselves from the ways of the heathen. And we have to, every time Yah reveals things to us that are incorrect, we got to let that go. Whoever it may be, whatever it may be, okay? Some can do that, some cannot. And the ones who cannot, those are the ones who awaken to the fact they're Israel. But if they don't get their act together, all right, then they will awaken to shame and everlasting contempt. Okay, now I'm back here in 12, okay? And what does it say? And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people. So again, we awaken, right? And again, that Hosea chapter 6, after 2 days. Now, the 2 days began in 104 BCE. And how do I know that? Because we know unequivocally that the seal came off the book in 1896 CEAD, because this is when William Crowdy in New York started teaching we were Israel, even though that William Crowdy movement today is still caught up into the idol of Christianity, the New Testament, as many Israelites are. All right? But William Crowdy started teaching we were Israel in New York in 1896. Now, I know many of you out there who are listening and say, well, how do you know, okay, that's, when we started to awaken, because the very next year, in 1897, this is when the House of Rothschild, Theodore Herzl movement, the Zionist movement, to the land of Palestine, as it was called then. And that was prophesied in the one chapter of Obadiah, when it says, those who eat of thy bread, those who took you to the border, have laid a wound up under you that you cannot perceive. And this is talking about Edomites, okay? And the ones who were taken to the border are the dupes, the ones that's over there now, okay? The Netanyahus and the Benny Gantzes, and all the ones that's in those settlements, and all the ones that's going back there, right? Yah is driving them back there to this day by his spirit, right? Because you've got what's called anti-Semitism that's rising up in the earth with many of these European nations, and even over here, and in possibly other countries, but definitely in the European nations, all right? And so you got many Edomites that's been over in Europe. They run into the land of Israel, okay? And Yah is doing that by his spirit, okay? Because as he says in the 3rd chapter of the book of Zephaniah, verse 8, his determination is to gather the nations, that he can pour upon them the fury of his anger, all right, to gather people back to the nation they originated from, they're indigenous to. So the Edomites, the robbers of our people, trying to rob us of our heritage. And again, for those of you who are out there that wonder why I say that, Edomites, these Jews, because again, you got a lot of Israelites who think they're Jews, but they are actually caught up into the lies and the deceptions of the Edomites. They're either in Hasidism or Judaism, as it's called, as of the last few hundred years, or they're caught up into Christianity some kind of way, right? And these are concepts as well as Islam that the illuminated Edomites thought up, all right? But you got many Israelites caught up in these two religions of Hasidism, Judaism, and Christianity, all right? And they think they're Jews, but they're not, because Israelites are not Jews, okay? The Edomites are the Jews, because that term comes from the contracted form of the term Judah. And as I told this Edomite many years ago, there is no such tribe ever in the nation of Israel called Judah. It's a tribe called YHWHudah, as my name is, which means he who creates be praised, okay? That's what Yah means, he who creates. Yah of hosts, he who creates hosts, okay? So you've got so much confusion out here, right? But again, you don't have any Israelites who are Jews. Israelites are Hebrew Israelites. The Jews are the Edomites in actuality, all right? And the Edomites, again, trying to rob us of our heritage, they've been calling themselves Jews, or should I say Israelites per se, right, for over 2,200 years now. That's not the prophecy. That right there alone makes them not Israel, okay? So now, again, what does it say? After the seal comes off the book after 2,500 years, and again, 104 BCE is when you didn't have an Israelite on this earth that knew they were Israel. When you add that to 1896, what do you get? Matter of fact, I take that back, 604. That's the time and a half. That's where Daniel was, when he got this first vision. He's in 604 BCE. When you add that 604 to 1896, you get 2,500 years. But when you add the 104 to the 1896, you get the 2,000 years, which is what's talked about in Hosea chapter 6, the 2 days, okay? And that's your 2 days. And both of them end at the same time. The 2,500 years and the 2 days, they end at the same time. The time and a half started 500 years earlier, okay? But the 2 days, it started 500 years later, and it ends at 1896. Because like I said, what underscores that is the fulfillment of part of Obadiah when it says, those who took you to the border have laid a wound up under you. Again, we know historically that the House of Rothschild took the Zionist movement, the Theodore Herzl movement, to the land of Palestine, as it was called then, in 1897, the next year, to fill up this void of no Israel in the land. See, that's what underscores that. And again, we see 52 years later, or should I say 51 years later, right, in 1948, right, that's when they brought the name of Israel back into the world and started calling it the State of Israel, okay? And they've been there now, 100 and going on 123 years this year. Still no temple of Yah, huh? You got all kind of religions based over there in Jerusalem, huh? All forms of Christianity, all forms of Islam. Well, Islam, right? Judaism, but no temple of Yah. And that's what they want to build. That's talked about in 66 Yeshaya, Isaiah. But nevertheless, it's now, we're going toward the way of Yah being established. And when, the way of Yah is here, it's in captivity, but I'm talking about established in Jerusalem. That's the next movement back, the Jerusalem movement. And when that happens, not too long after we get back, okay, then from that point on, that's when Yah will start to scatter the power of the holy people, okay? And when that reaches, its total extent, then all these things will be finished. But nevertheless, I'm in verse 8. And you see what? This is a key verse. Daniel says, "And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, oh, my Lord," he's talking to the angel, more likely Gabriel, "what shall be the end of these things?" And the angel standing on the water said, "Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end." In other words, until the seal came off the book, and it came off the book in 1896. Okay? And it says, you see what it says in verse 10? "Many shall be purified, made white," in other words, and tried. And as I said in the past, some can stand up to this refinement. That's what tried is indicating, okay? Refinement, because we've got to be purged of all pride, arrogance, ego. We've got to be purged of the ways of the heathen, eating all unclean things, drinking unclean things, saying profane things, doing profane things, okay? You are what you eat, right? However you eat it. So any shape, form, or fashion, you eating anything profane, you're going to become that to whatever extent. And we have to purge ourselves of these things because we are what? 53rd chapter, Yeshaya, Isaiah. We are roots out of dry ground, basically. Even Israelites that been born and raised Israelites since 1896, they've been taught about idolatries, the New Testament, Judaism, again, which evolved out of Hasidism. Now, that's the end of this first vision, okay? And again, it's paramount in the fact that Daniel, he didn't understand this, what had been shown to him. Now, we don't have all of it because Esau took the introduction away. More likely he took the introduction away because also, I'm saying it was other things, I don't know what, but more likely than not, it definitely was letting us know in the introduction of this vision, somewhere the part that he took out, that this was the first vision that he got, okay? Now, again, now I'm going to chapter 2, Daniel, which is the second vision that he got, okay? And again, it tells you in verse 1, in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Now again, this is the second vision, not the first that Daniel got. And Daniel didn't understand the vision that I just, brought forth, right? As he says, and again, just all of you out there can take note of this. Daniel understood this vision that I'm getting ready to deal with, okay, which talks about the 4 kingdoms of man. He understood the vision in chapter 7, which he tells us, which is dealing, again, with the 4 kingdoms of man. And he tells you he understood it. And it also tells you he didn't tell anybody about that vision. Okay? He understood the vision in chapter 8, which talks about the Medo-Persian kingdom, but gives you intricate insight into the 3rd kingdom, the Greek kingdom. And he said he understood that vision. But he said he told some people about that, possibly Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. But they didn't understand it. But he understood it. Okay? So I ask you, how could Daniel understand chapter 2, vision of Nebuchadnezzar's dream and the interpretation, chapter 7 about the 4 kingdoms, representative of the beast, right, all the way until, you understand, Yah brought this seed of David and his movement to Jerusalem in the sight of the world, again, which is underscored in the 52nd chapter of Yeshaya. How could Daniel understand chapter 8, which he did, which gives you intricate insight into the Greek kingdom, but not understand this vision here, if this was the last vision, which is talking about the 4th kingdom, as we see, as I just said to you. And again, I'm going to paramount a little ways down the line if I get a chance tonight, why this vision is the first vision, because again, it looks like it's a continuation, this 11:36 to 12:10, and really 12:13, right? It looks like it's a continuation from chapter 10, verse 1, Daniel, which it starts out, Daniel said he understood this vision in 10:1, Daniel, right? And this was in the 3rd year of Cyrus, which is 535 BCE, because the Medo-Persian kingdom was established under Cyrus in 538 BCE. And he understood that vision. But now I just read to you over here in chapter 12, right, verse 8, Daniel says, but my Lord, I don't understand. He understood not. Now that right there, that's a red flag, right? This can't be the same vision that starts out in 10:1 Daniel. This got to be something else here. Now you got to go back, backtrack to find out where the illuminated Edomites spliced this vision in to the vision that starts in 10:1 Daniel. Now I'll leave that for you to maturate on you. You can take in notes and you can go back later. Now I'm in chapter 2. All right, and this is the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar, and this is the 2nd vision that's getting ready to tell you that Daniel got. Okay, so I'm going to kind of cut to the chase, right? And it says that, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, right? And so he commanded all his magicians and astrologers and soothsayers and advisors. He's like, hey, I've been having this dream, and I don't understand it, and I want you to give me the understanding of it. And they say, well, tell us the dream, and we'll give you the interpretation. But again, Nebuchadnezzar, Yah gave him enough wisdom to know. He said, I know if I tell you the dream, you're going to make up some lies to deceive me. The only way I know for sure, if you really understand or really can tell me the truth, what the interpretation of this dream is for you to tell me the dream without me telling you the dream. Okay? And what did they say to Nebuchadnezzar when, he said this to him? And I'm in verse 10. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, there is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's manner. Therefore, there is no king, lord, nor ruler that adds such things as any magician or astrologer or Chaldean, right? And it is a rare thing that, the king requires, and there is none other that can show it before the king except, now you see what it says here? The gods, lowercase, right? These inanimate objects, right? You follow me? And it's plural, right? Whose dwelling is not with flesh, right? Because they were, polytheist, and that's exhibited when you see Gods, correct? Verse 11. Now I'm in verse 12. For this cause, Nebuchadnezzar was really angry, very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. So when the decree went out, and you remember now what I read in chapter 1, right, of this book, right? Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they excelled all of the wise men. Didn't it say that? Right? Okay. So, again, when the decree came for the wise men to be slain, and, they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Verse 14, then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. And he answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in. He was by himself the first time he went in, and desired that Nebuchadnezzar would give him some time, and he would show, the Nebuchadnezzar his, the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to his companions, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, that they would desire mercies of Yah, the strong one of heaven. And remember now what I said. You don't see Yah here, but it was here. The illuminated Edomite between the 4th and 9th century CEAD called Meserich took the name of Yah out of this book from Genesis through Malachi in over 600 to 800 places. All right? Okay? And they would desire mercies of Yah, the strong one of heaven, concerning the secret. And Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Okay, then was the secret revealed, verse 19, unto Daniel in a night vision. Okay, then Daniel blessed Yah, the strong one of heaven. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of Yah forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. Now you see here in verse 20 where it says, and Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name. Now you know he didn't say that. Huh? Or if he did, he said the actual name of the Most High. But we don't see it here because Esau, the illuminated Edomite, is taking it out. Okay? And he says what? Bless Yah, the strong one of heaven forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changes the times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. And again, when I read that wisdom and knowledge like that, you understand, underscore the first 9 chapters of Proverbs. And if you haven't read it, or you have it or read it and you really don't understand what I'm saying, go back there when you get a chance and read the first 9 chapters of Proverbs. Verse 21. Verse 22. And he reveals the deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. And then Daniel thanked and praised Yah, right? The strong one of his fathers, who have given me wisdom and might, and has made known unto me now what we desired of thee. For thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter. Therefore Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom Nebuchadnezzar had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. And he went and said thus unto him, destroy not the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation. Then Arioch brought in Daniel before Nebuchadnezzar in haste. And again, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were with him. Okay, that's going to be made known a little bit in a little while, right? But they were with him. When he went in the first time, he was by himself. But this time, he said, take us in before the king. He had Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah with him. Okay, again, verse 26. Verse 25. Then Arioch brought in Daniel before, and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah before Nebuchadnezzar in haste, and said thus unto him, I have found a man of the captains of YHWHudah that will make known unto the king the interpretation. Because it was Daniel that actually was doing the talking. And then Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen and the interpretation thereof? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which you have demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king? See? And again, this is what I said on the last session in that so-called debate, when I directed everybody, you understand, to Amos 3, verse 7. Okay, but also read verse 2, right? And you can even go back into Amos chapter 2, right? Yah only reveals his mind to his servants, the prophets, which are Israel. He's only spoken to the nation of Israel. He has not spoken to any other people of any other nation except Balaam the son of Beor, who was a Hebrew of the Midianites. Okay? But again, he only did that, as I said before, because Balak, the king of Moab, sent for Balaam. Okay? Because again, he evidently had been
Yehudah.
Huh?
Stand by. Sorry about that. Stand by. We only got like 2 minutes left on the air. We only have 2 minutes left on the air, but we're going into the overtime part of the show, guys. So if you're listening on social media, you're going to have to call in 319-527-6239. Again, we're going into the overtime part of the show. You're going to have to call in to hear the rest of the show. We have 2 minutes left on the air. I apologize. Continue.
Okay, so again, if you read Amos chapter 2, and like I said, chapter 3, verse 2 and verse 7, and then Deuteronomy 18, Yah only speaks through Israel. He don't speak through any other people. And it's only Israel, that he speaks to. That's why he judges Israel the way he judges. But nevertheless, you see Daniel, he's bringing that out here, right? Verse 27, right? Now, verse 28 in chapter 2. But Yah, the strong one of heaven, that's how Daniel said it, that reveals secrets and makes known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. And then he goes on to tell him what his dream was, right? And again, what does he say? Nebuchadnezzar, what shall be, Yah made known to Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days, talking about today, and beyond today, right? Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. And again, as Daniel said, as for thee, O king, thy thoughts that came into thy mind upon thy bed, what shall come to pass hereafter? And he that reveals secrets makes known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, the secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation to the king, and that you might know the thoughts of thy heart. You, O king, saw it, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part iron, part clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet, that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. This was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver. Then, should I say, was the iron, the clay, the brass, and the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. And this is paramount here in verse 35, that no parts of the image would remain in the earth, would go over into that stone, okay? The stone, after it hits, starts to grow into a mountain that's going to fill up the whole earth. But no parts of that gold, silver, brass, or iron, okay, is going to go over into stone made out of clay. Is it not dirt? Okay? Only people can go over into that stone as it grows into a mountain. Okay? No ideologies, no inventions during those four kingdoms can go over into that mountain of clay. You follow me? So that right there knocks out anything that was conceived of, as I said prior in another session we had, any ideological concepts, religions, any inventions, from that head of gold all the way through those feet and toes part of clay, it's all got to break up and be blown away till no parts of it is left in the earth, right? So again, all of these nuclear weapons, TVs as we know them, with emitting radiation, You follow what I'm saying? Pesticides, you know what I mean? All of this nonsense that man has conceived of that's destroying himself. You follow me? With his so-called great inventions. None of that can come over into the way of Yah. Okay? None of these religions that have been conceived out of the heart of men can come over into the way of Yah. Okay? Verse 36. This is the dream, and we will tell thee the interpretation thereof. You see what he says? And we. See, that lets you know Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were with him, even though they hadn't actually been cited earlier, right? Okay. Thou, O king, art a king of kings. For the Yah, the strong one of heaven, hath given thee a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And you know it was Yah. He said Yah that had given him this. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. After thee shall arise another kingdom, inferior to thee. In other words, not going to have the same power. You understand that Nebuchadnezzar had the head of gold. And that's the silver. That's the Medo-Persian kingdom. And another third kingdom of brass. That's the Greek kingdom, right? Didn't have the power of the previous two, which shall bear rule over all the earth. We know that started with Alexander, but I'm going to keep going. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaks in pieces and subdues all things. And as iron that breaks all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas you saw the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, and the kingdom shall be divided. Hear that? Divided. But there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And we know clay and iron cannot mix, just like clay cannot mix with gold, any metallic metal, right? You understand? It cannot mix with gold, silver, brass, or iron. Clay does not mix with those, correct? And we represent the clay, because it's in the fourth kingdom, as I said earlier, 1896, when the seal came off the book. Now Yah, as of 1896, can be found if he is sought for. If you're looking for those things that rest with him, peace, truth, righteousness, salvation, and Yah say he is salvation and he alone. Yeshaya chapter 43, right? If you're looking for the true and living creator, and it's only one, and it's always been one, and it'll always be just one, and that's Yah of hosts. Okay? As of 1896, the clay appears in the feet and toes, part iron, part clay, in the latter days of the fourth kingdom. Remember now, the fourth kingdom, started to come about. We know the fourth kingdom was in existence with Octavian. Okay? Because at the Battle of Actium, Rome is the power now. And the Battle of Actium was 31 BCE. But even before that, with Julius Caesar, Rome was power. It was the powerful, right? You understand what I'm saying? So it might go back, because it's, as I've said to everybody in the past, you'd be hard-pressed to actually pinpoint when the fourth kingdom began and the third kingdom ended. Okay? But we know with Octavian in 31 BCE, after the Battle of Actium, Rome is the power. It ain't the fourth kingdom, but it's the first empire in the fourth kingdom. Okay? Because the key to the fourth kingdom is diverse from the previous three. Even when, Octavian came on the scene, you had other nations that had kings. Remember that fourth beast, but, that's a little bit later down the line. So let me keep going. All right? So, again, verse 43, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And that's Israel, right? They've mixed with us. You understand what I'm saying? It used to be taboo here in this country to see an Israelite with a Gentile Caucasian woman, or vice versa, even though we know many Caucasian Gentiles, European men were having intercourse with Israelite women. Thomas Jefferson, George White, all of them. You understand what I'm saying? And Strom Thurmond, right? You dig? But now it's nothing to see that. And it's not really hidden anymore, right? You got your Diana Rosses and whatnot, even though she was hooked up with a bunch of Edomites. And we know all nations have come through Israel, okay? And that was, what was to happen to us, because our forefathers wanted to be like the heathen. You understand what I'm saying? And that's 1 Samuel, chapter 8. They wanted to be like the heathen, and they kept with that. And many of us still are that way today, right? Now you see what it says in verse 44. And in the days of these kings, when they gonna mingle themselves with the seed of men, and they're mingling seed across the board now. Isn't that right? With foodstuffs, animals, all kind of stuff. Transgenders, well, not transgenders, but this intersex that I'm hearing about. Children, sometime, I guess, in the seed stage and start messing with the DNA and all of that. That's why this door to Babylon is going to be destroyed utterly, but that's a little bit down the line too. Okay. And it says that's when Yah, in the latter days of this fourth kingdom, he starts to set up his kingdom, okay, which shall never be destroyed. And Yah's kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms. In other words, when it says consume, again, it's going to destroy them, right, as I just read earlier. And it shall stand forever. Yah's kingdom shall stand forever. And again, the only thing can come over into Yah's kingdom out of this fourth kingdom are human beings. And again, some human beings can't come over into the kingdom of Yah because Yah's already passed judgment, just like these Amalekite Edomites. Okay? And that's chapter 24 in Numbers because they're going to fight against Yah until he destroys all of the Amalekite line of Esau. And that's talked about in Exodus chapter 17 and again Numbers chapter 24. Verse 45, for as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands. Now that's significant, okay, because that's talking about this seed of David that Yah said he's going to raise up out of the stem of Jesse, Yeshaya chapter 11, this branch coming out of the line, the seed of David. David's dead. David's not coming back, but he got seed on this earth today. As I said in the past to everybody, I don't know how much seed. He might have 2, 4, 6,000 sons, descendants, males walking this earth today. But it's only one of them that Yah said that he's going to raise up to work through to establish his kingdom through. Okay, you can see it, in Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 42. Behold, my servant, mine elect, in whom my soul delights. Singular talking, right? I put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment unto truth. The isles wait for his law. You see it, as I said on the last session, that debate. If you actually read chapter 42, Yeshaya, Isaiah, chapter 49, and chapter 53, that they claim are talking about the main idol of Christianity, if you really read it and understand what you're reading, and if you kind of know anything about the New Testament and its main idol, there's no way that those 3 chapters could be talking about him. Because in those 3 chapters, it's talking about somebody that didn't know, root out of dry ground, didn't know who he was, what he was, okay, from birth until he got, basically came into adulthood, okay? He didn't know what he was. He got the, and you can see that in the 42nd chapter. For a while, he was deaf and blind. But he put his trust in the Creator, not knowing who he was and not knowing who the Creator was. But he knew it was a Creator, see? And we see it again in the 49th chapter, don't we? When that seed of David says, when he finds out that he's Israel, he's like, oh, man, I spent my strength for naught and in vain, my labor in vain. Surely my judgment, my work, my reward is with the strong one, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You follow what I'm saying? Which, again, he found out a little later on down the line, his name is Yah. My work is with Yah of hosts. I'm an Israelite. So, again, those of you, as I said before, you understand, know the story of this New Testament. What does it say? Isn't that why those 3 wise men traveled that long distance? Because they, you understand, knew about this boy who was supposed to be born, that supposed to be the son of God. Everybody knew, many people knew who he was. Well, that's not what it's saying in the 42nd, 49th, and 53rd chapter of Isaiah Yeshaya, is it? So they can't be talking about this entity over here in the New Testament. You follow me? Now, I'm back over here to finish this out, chapter 2. Okay? So the stone is cut out without hands. That means it's the spirit of Yah, as I just said to you in chapter 42, Yeshaya, behold, my servant, mine elect, I put my spirit upon him. Okay, because there is no educational facility, no theological school that you can go to learn this. See, you get this from YHWH. When you read his word, which is the new covenant, 31:31, you remember, everybody got to read this time. It's not like it was in ancient times. Malachi chapter 2, the people sought the law at the mouth of the priest, because you didn't have no lot of books back then. It was the people that had, the priests that had the law, the priesthood. You know, the Levites had it. You understand? The governor had it, some of the princes, but on the whole, people had to go to the mouth of to the priest to find out, you understand, the law of Yah. Well, now Yah's righteousness is near everybody on the earth. And the only transliteration that fulfills 46:13 and 51:5 Isaiah Yeshaya, when Yah said, I brought near my righteousness, my salvation is soon to follow. That's 46:13 and 51:5. He says, my righteousness is near. That's his word. And the only transliteration that fulfills that is the authorized King James Version. That's written in over 2,100 languages. No other book on the earth is translated in that many languages. Not even Harry Potter. Okay? And I just knocked out Christianity, if you're really listening and got a grasp of this. Okay? And if not, maybe you'll see it a little ways down the line. All right? So, again, that's the essence of the stone cut out without hands. Okay? Because Yah is taking this person, this seed of David, who sought him, who came to this book to bust it out. But in doing so, to try to bust it out, he found out who he is, who his people are, and you understand, still finding things out. Found out, you understand, who the true adversaries of Yah are. These are Malachi, International Bank, and the Edomites. And there's other Edomites with them. But like I said, I don't want anybody to get the mindset that I hate Edomites. I don't hate anybody. I just understand. Simple as that. Because we're instructed in Deuteronomy chapter 23 not to hate the Edomites because they are our brothers. And we're going to have some Edomites that's going to transition over into the kingdom of Yah. It just won't be any Amalekite Edomites, males or females. Okay? And so now, again, verse 45, for as much as thou sawest that the stone cut out of the mountain without hands, that it break in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, Yah, the strong one, the great strong one, and the only strong one, hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. Then Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel. See, that right there lets you know that Nebuchadnezzar still wasn't worshiping Yah, right? He still didn't truly understand. He understood that, Daniel broke down his dream, and he understood that the interpretation was real, but he still didn't really fear and understand that Yah was he who creates. He worshiped Daniel and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors unto Daniel, not to Yah, right? But this will come a little later. Then Nebuchadnezzar answered Daniel and said, of a truth it is that Yah is a strong one of strong ones. You see what Nebuchadnezzar said? He's a strong one of strong ones. So now Nebuchadnezzar, you understand, he's saying, yeah, Yah is a strong one, but there's other strong ones too, which it is not. So he still, you can see here, he still don't really understand, right? Okay. And he's a Lord of kings and a revealer of secrets, seeing you could reveal this secret. Then Nebuchadnezzar made Daniel a great man and gave him many great gifts and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief of the governors over all the wise men of Babylon. Then Daniel requested of Nebuchadnezzar, and he said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, right, over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gate of the king. All right? Now, chapter 3, Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold, whose height was, 60 cubits, the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar, the king, sent to gather together the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, and in other words, everybody, significance, right? And all the rulers of the province to come to the dedication of the image of Nebuchadnezzar. So now he's going to set an image up of himself that he wants the people, you understand, to bow down and worship, right? And so, again, cutting to the chase, well, let me read verse. Let me keep going. Then the princes, the governors, and the captains, and judges, treasurers, counselors, sheriffs, and all the rulers of the province were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar, the king, had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cry aloud to you, it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, you shall fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. And whoso falls not down and worships shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Therefore, at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all the kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near and accused. Now, this is an implant, this term Jew. We know that J didn't come on the scene until the midst of the 17th century CE. All right? And again, it's talking about, you understand, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. We are not Jews. This is an implant that Esau put in here. We're Israelites. All right, so that term wasn't there. It just says accused, you understand, these people, you know, these four people. They spake and said unto the king Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Thou, O king, hast made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and the dulcimer, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoso falleth not down and worships that, he should be cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. There are certain Israelites whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon. See, because Daniel was totally exonerated. He's absolved. Nebuchadnezzar told him he serving Yah. He ain't got to bow down. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, he's telling them they got to bow down. They ain't on the same, stance with Daniel, all right? But they come back and tell him, look, you understand? We just like Daniel. We worship Yah and Yah only. We don't worship anything but Yah. You follow me? And Nebuchadnezzar, he was in a rage, three of them, okay? Because they like, hey, you understand? We're not bowing down to any graven image, okay? So now Nebuchadnezzar commanded to bring Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah to him, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Verse 14, Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, is it true, that the three of you, you understand, are not going to serve my idols, nor worship me, and the golden image of myself? And they like, now if you be ready, that at times what you hear, the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, you fall down and worship the image which I have made. But if you worship not, you should be, cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery flame, a furnace. And who is, Yah? Or, you understand, and more than likely, because they didn't already told him, but he's like, what strong one, or Yah that shall deliver you out of my hand? Then Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said unto Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this manner. If it be so, then Yah, our strong one, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace. He will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve your idols. You understand? We will not worship you, your golden image, which you have set up. See? Because and that's the kind of faith that we've got to have today. That's why, again, when I was reading that over there in Daniel chapter 12, it said many, that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting light, some to shame and everlasting contempt. Those ones who awake to the fact they're Israel, but they're going to awake to shame and everlasting contempt, just like you see in Hosea chapter 6 at the top, after the 2,000 years or 2 days, those who seek Yah of Israel, Yah is going to revive us. And then what does it say? Then we shall know if we follow on to serve Yah. See? Because you got to go through refinement, and Yah is preparing us. You follow me? And so many of us who've awakened and turned to Yah with all our heart and soul, you understand, we're going to be all right because we're totally committed and submitted. But you've got some who know about Yah, who say Yah, right, who say they're about Yah, but they're not totally committed and submitted with all their heart and soul for whatever reason. You follow me? They want to exalt themselves, or they holding on to something of the way of the heathen that you can't take, you understand, into the way of Yah, that they refuse to let go of, okay? I've talked to all different kinds through the years. For whatever reason, you know, they still want to do whatever it may be, and it's not in the way of Yah, right? You got many who use profanity. You know, you hear profanity coming out of their mouth. You know, you can't make Yah party to profaneness of any kind, all right? And so for some reason or other, they can't, you understand, they can't stay with Yah. They become adverse. They are adverse. You know, they get purged from the path of Yah, even though they still claim they're about Yah, right? But nevertheless, so, you know, they don't have the faith, whatever it may be. Some, you know, say, you know, I can't do Yah Sabbath day because I got to work a job. No, you don't. Once we come into this world, the only thing we got to do is die. That's the only thing we got to do. We ain't even got to breathe if we don't want to. See, it's all by choice, all right? So now we see what Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah said to Nebuchadnezzar. He was furious, right? And so he ordered them to be thrown in the burning, you know, furnace, right? And so verse 19, Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the form of his visage, you know, his countenance changed, right? And therefore he spake and commanded that they would heat the furnace 17 times more than it was wont to be heated. So they really heated it up 7 times hotter than it normally is heated, right? And he commanded that the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, right, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen, their hats, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those of his army, mighty men, that he had take Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah up and throw them. The fire killed them. All right? All right? Says, and these 3 men, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, right, fell down bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished and rose up in haste and spake and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? And they answered and said unto the king, True, O king. And he answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt. And the form of the 4th, now again, you know, they got the Son of God, but this is an angel, one of Yah's angels that Yah has sent to protect Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, right? Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spake and said, you know, this is after the fire done, you know, died down, right? And he said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of Yah, the Most High, right? Come forth and come here. Then Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah came forth out of the midst of the fire. And again, you know, it had died down. It wasn't as hot as it was, right? And the princes and governors and captains and the king's counselors being gathered together saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was a hair of their heads singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire passed on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be Yah, the strong one of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent, you hear this? His angel. So that's who, you know, this so-called Son of God in verse 25. He said he sent his angel and delivered his servants, right, that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word and yielded their bodies that they might not serve nor worship anyone, any idol, except him. any idol, but just worshipped him and him alone, except their own strong one, Yah, right? Therefore, I make a decree that every people, nation, language which speak anything amiss against Yah, the strong one of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no idol, right? No so-called strong one that can deliver after this sort. Then Nebuchadnezzar promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah in the province of Babylon, because now Yah had anointed himself through these three like he had anointed himself through Daniel earlier. That's why Daniel didn't have to do this. Nebuchadnezzar said, you don't have to do this, Daniel. I know you serve Yah, but they got to do it. Then they had to, hey, we just like Daniel. We ain't bound down to any idol either. He got upset. Then because they had the faith they had and trusted in Yah, Yah anointed himself on these three and magnified himself to Nebuchadnezzar and the Chaldeans. And in so doing, Nebuchadnezzar wrote a decree to all peoples and languages, declaring that, again, Yah, understand, he is a strong one of the strongest, but still Nebuchadnezzar's not truly humble to Yah yet. All right? Now, we get to chapter 4. Nebuchadnezzar, right? This is him writing a letter. This has already happened to him, and now he's writing about it, right? And he said in verse 2, I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that Yah, the high strong one, hath wrought toward me. How great are his signs, how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. Again, because Yah is the first and the last. He's the only one that lives forever. Only seeds and eggs live forever, not human beings themselves. Okay? And so Nebuchadnezzar was at rest in his house, flourishing in his palace. And he had a dream, right, which made him afraid. And the thoughts upon his bed and visions of his head troubled him. Therefore, he made a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before him, that they might make known unto him the interpretation of the dream. Then came in the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, the soothsayers, and he told them the dream this time, right? But they did not make known to him the interpretation. But at the last, Daniel came in before Nebuchadnezzar, again, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of Nebuchadnezzar's idol, and whom is the spirit of the Holy One, Yah of hosts. That's what said Esau, then changed in the translation. And before him I told the dream. Now, I have no doubt that Nebuchadnezzar actually said this in verse 8, in whom is the spirit of the holy gods, because, you understand, at that time, you follow me, when Nebuchadnezzar's writing this, it's already done happened, but initially, okay, Nebuchadnezzar still hadn't been humbled toward Yah with all his heart and soul. So he probably did still pluralize the strong ones. Verse 9, O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in thee. See, Nebuchadnezzar, he's talking about what has happened, but at this particular time, what he's talking about, he ain't been humbled yet totally to Yah himself. And no secret troubles thee. Tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and the interpretation thereof. Thus were the visions of my head and my bed. I saw and behold a tree in the midst of the earth, and the height thereof was great. The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. Right there, this verse 11 lets you know that the lie that these illuminated Edomites and those with him, the Skull and Bone Boys and whomever else, right, have perpetrated on the people of the earth, that the earth is round like a ball, this right there belies that. Because the tree in this dream is Nebuchadnezzar. And it says that, as I read to you in verse 11, the tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. If the earth is round like a ball, you got people up underneath it, how they going to see a tree? That's someplace else. You know what I'm saying? There's no way they can see the tree. The only way they can, the tree could be in the sight of everybody on the earth as if the earth is flat, which it is. round like a plate with a covering over it, like a glass covering, okay, which is that firmament. It's like a dome, right? That's why when you see the rainbow, which is the covenant that Yah has put in the heavens, every time we see the rainbow, it lets us know Yah is never going to inundate the earth with water again. See, the illuminated Edomite couldn't get rid of the rainbow, right? And I know all of you out there at some point in time, you've seen the rainbow or a piece of it. And every time you see part of that rainbow, it's always what? It's always generally curved, is it not? Because the rainbow, you understand, those multicolors come through, it's a refraction that comes through the dome that's over the top of the earth. And the dome is like, as it says in Job chapter 37, a molten looking glass. Okay? Nevertheless, and it says, verse 12, right? The leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all. The beasts of the field, had shadow under it, and the fowls of the heaven dwelt in the boughs thereof, and all flesh was fed of it. I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher, a holy one, came down from heaven, an angel. He cried aloud and said thus, hew down the tree, cut off his branches, and shake off his leaves, and scatter his fruit. Let the beasts get away from under it, and the fowls from his branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of his roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, and the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beast in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the Holy One. Now that's singular, not plural. Holy One, that's Yah. To the intent that the living may know that Yah, the Most High, rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomsoever he will, and sets up over it the basis of men. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now, thou, O Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation thereof, for as much as all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation, but thou art able, for the spirit of the Holy One, Yah of hosts, is in thee. You know that's what was said. Esau took it out. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was astonished for 1 hour, and his thoughts troubled him. The king spake and said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation thereof trouble thee. Belteshazzar answered Daniel, right, and said, my lord, the dream be to them that hate thee, and the interpretation thereof to thine enemies. The tree that you saw which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto the heaven, and the sight thereof to all the earth. Again, the earth is flat, round like a plate, whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven had their habitation. It is thou, O king, thou art grown and become strong, for thy greatness is grown and reaches unto heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth. And again, the earth is stable, it does not move. It's the sun, the moon, and the stars that move across the face of the earth. The earth is stable, as David so states in Chronicles chapter, 1 Chronicles 16. The earth is stable, it don't move. Okay? And again, anytime you see where it refers to the earth, like in Isaiah chapter 13, it says the foundations of the earth. It says the earth shall shake out of its place. Anytime when you see the earth is mentioned, it says the foundations. Well, look up foundations sometime. It means to be stabilized. You know, this building that I'm sitting in has a foundation. It's stable. It don't move. And that's the earth. It don't move. See, this is all the nonsense of Esau and the lies and the deception that he's put out here on the masses of the earth. That's again why he said the stone will be cut out without hands. You follow me? Because Yah by his spirit, Yeshaya chapter 42, Yeshaya chapter 49, he's teaching this seed of David as he is teaching others who have come into the stone, because the stone is no longer a stone now. Okay, it's a boulder. How big, I don't know. It might even be a small hill, okay? But the stone is no longer a stone now, because there's others coming in it, and he's teaching us all by his spirit, okay? But again, it says the tree that you saw, which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to all the earth, whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and it was meat for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and upon the branches the fowls of the heaven had their habitation. It is thee, O king, thou art become strong, for thy greatness is grown, and it reaches unto heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth. And whereas you saw a watcher and a holy one, an angel, coming down from heaven, saying, hew the tree down, destroy it, yet leave the stump of the roots thereof in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts of the field, till 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High, Yah of hosts, which is come upon my Lord the king, that they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as an ox. They shall wet thee with the dew of heaven, and 7 times, or 7 years, shall pass over thee, till you know that Yah of hosts, the Most High, rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomsoever he will. And whereas they commanded to leave the stump of the tree roots, thy kingdom shall be sure unto thee. After that you shall have known that Yah and the heavens, Yah of the heavens do rule, because it's Yah that rules. Wherefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto thee, and break off thy sins by righteousness. See, now, Daniel is counseling Nebuchadnezzar, you understand, break off thy iniquities, right? Humble thyself, in other words, let go of thy pride and arrogance, right? And he's saying, if it may be a lengthening of thy tranquility. All this came upon Nebuchadnezzar the king at the end of the 12 months. He walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon, right? This is 12 months later, so they got here, right? Could have been 13, but that's another thing, right? The king spake and said, is not this the great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power? You hear how he's boasting, braggadocian, right? And for the honor of my majesty. And while the word was in Nebuchadnezzar's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee, and they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over thee, 7 years, until thou know that Yah of hosts, the Most High, rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomsoever he will. The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. And at the end of the days, 7 years, right, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes unto heaven, and my understanding returned unto me. Yah gave him understanding again, and I blessed Yah, the Most High, and praised and honored him that lives forever, see, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. Now, when this had happened, now you hear, Nebuchadnezzar ain't talking about no other gods, huh? You follow me? Now he knows that Yah is he who creates and the strong one of heaven, and he alone. Now he has been totally humbled. And that's what Yah is in the process of doing to this Lucifer, son of the morning, that you see in Yeshua chapter 14, this Leviathan, same person per se, same entity, same house, that you see in Yeshua, Isaiah chapter 27, right? Just like he did Amenophis II when he brought the children of Israel out of Egypt. He humbled Amenophis II with those 10 plagues, and he's in the process of doing this again. All right? But this is what he did to Nebuchadnezzar. And then Nebuchadnezzar understood unequivocally, right, that Yah ruled, right? And then he blessed Yah and praised and honored him that lives forever, okay, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom from generation to generation, and all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. And he does according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth. And none can stay Yah's hand or say unto him, what doest thou? At the same time, my reason returned unto me, and for the glory of my kingdom. My honor, brightness returned unto me, and my counselors and my lords sought unto me. And I was established in my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added unto me. Now I Nebuchadnezzar praise and extol and honor Yah, the King of heaven, all whose works are truth and his ways judgment. And those that walk in pride he is able to abase. Okay? Now, that's chapter 4. Now, the next chapter is chapter 7.
Hold on, Yehudah. You only got a few minutes left in the air, unfortunately. But as Yehudah said, there's going to be some continuation to this particular program. You can give that information out to the family. And, by the way, there's people out there that's out listening. If you want to press number 1 quickly and say a few words, you can. Just press number 1, and we can hear from you guys. Other than that, there's only a few minutes left on the air. But let people know where they can continue to hear the rest of the information. Good. YHWHUdah Ben Yisrael, can you hear me?
Yeah,
YHWHUdah?
I can hear you. Yeah, you want me to tell them where they can hear it?
Yeah, we're gonna have the continuation of this segment.
Okay, if they want to pick up on this again, the 7th of March, which is a Sabbath day, 11 o'clock Eastern time, Pal Talk, Yah Our Righteousness will be on Pal Talk as we usually are on the Sabbath day, and the session for this month of March will play 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and on the Q&A after that session, the question and answer, I will finish the rest of this breaking down the book of Daniel, chapter 7, because it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more things left, and I'll talk about them on that Q&A.
All right, not a problem. I have the website in the description box, family. That's YahOurRighteousnessChicago.net. I see somebody press number 1. I'm going to get to you. And again, family, if you want to chime in quickly and say your piece, what you thought about the lesson, anything that you want to ask my special guest, you can. Again, just press number 1. It's the overtime part of the show. And I have the Pal Talk link as well, and I have the YouTube page. So I have everything, YHWHUdah Ben Yisrael, if you want to reach out to him in the description box or check out the website. But let's go to the call. Let's go to 475 live.
Peace. This is YHWHUdah Ben Yisrael from Connecticut. I wanted to just add something to what the presenter was saying about the eternal life and people who believe that one individual can have eternal life. In Zechariah chapter 1 and verse 5, there's a question that Yah asks. He says, your fathers, where are they? And the prophets, do they live forever? So the answer is, your fathers, where are they? They're dead. And the prophets, do they live forever? No. So that right there, I believe, should put it to rest about one individual living forever. And that's what I have to say. Peace.
YHWHUdah, you want to respond? You can.
Oh, again, I'm in total agreement with the brother. Again, as we pointed out in the past to everybody, I think I pointed out last time I was on, Ecclesiastes, pay particular attention to the end of chapter 3 and then chapter 9. Basically, at the end of chapter 3 in Ecclesiastes, it says the same thing and underscores what the brother just brought out about Zechariah chapter 1, verse 5. But it's in the other places, too. Like I said, it's only Yah is the only one that lives forever. When Yah says he's the first and the last, like he does in Isaiah chapter 43, then if any one human being lives forever themselves, right, his or herself, then Yah's a liar. He's not the last. I mean, that's real simplistic. So, again, we've been inculcated with lies and deception, and this has been done, as I said in the past, the illuminated Edomite. Okay, when you get into history, they tell you that it was the Greeks that taught the world how to think. Well, that's totally incorrect. It was the illuminated Edomite that taught the world what to think, not how to think, what to think. And they still do that to this day. That's why you only got 6 media outlets in this country that control 90% of the media, okay? You used to go, if you go back so many years, 40, 50 years ago, you had a couple of hundred or so media outlets. Now you only got 6, and they're controlled by the Corptocracy, which is controlled by the Illuminated Edomite and the Skull and Bone Boys. And the Skull and Bone Boys are the secondary king, chapter 41, verse 9, Isaiah Yeshaya. When Yah said, I have called thee from the chief men thereof. You look up that chief in the Strong's Exalted Concordance, and you'll see it's going, the definition is secondary extremity. And that's what the Skull and Bone Boys are. They are the secondary chief. They get their orders from the Illuminati Edomite. That's why back in 90, when George W. Herbert Walker Bush, should I say, the old, W's old man, and Neil Bush's old man, right? And Marvin Bush's old man. Marvin Bush being, he was running the security over, you understand, the trade centers when 9/11 jumped off. Now, you understand, I've talked about that in the past, because that was an inside job. But nevertheless, George Herbert Walker Bush back there in 91, what did he say? He said, he mentioned about the 360 degrees of light, and talking about the New World Order. Well, he's a Skull and Bone Boy. All right, that's what Bushes are. W is a Skull and Bone Boy. His daddy was Skull and Bones. His daddy, the grandfather, Prescott Bush, Skull and Bone Boy. You follow what I'm saying? You got Skull and Bone Boys all throughout the government. You follow what I'm saying? It's hard to pinpoint them now. You understand? Because they've taken on more secrecy, but they all intertwined into the government. Like the Dulles brothers, they were Skull and Bones. Okay, like I said, people, you got to go into this history, but you got to go into, history that's not that old and history way back. And it's getting harder because the Illuminated Edomite has gone into these history books, and I've talked about this in the past, where it's harder to access the historical data now that is needed to understand this book of remembrance, okay? But again, that's why, you understand, we know this is the time of Yah. The movement of Yah is here, because if we were to die off, my generation and the generation behind us, this younger generation, there's no way they could access the history to substantiate and confirm the word of Yah, which has to be done. That's what Yah is talking about in the book of Jeremiah chapter 23 and chapter 30, when he says, in the latter days you shall consider it. In the latter days you shall consider it perfectly. Well, the only way to do that, right, is you got to go into man's story. And Esau, the Illuminated Edomite, Yah made it where he left enough, where he missed so much, okay, where we can go and substantiate the word of Yah. And you got to be able to do that. That's what makes us know, not think, feel, believe, and accept.
All right, family. Like I said, we only got a few minutes left. I see we have a lot of people on the phone lines, family. Again, if you want to chime in briefly, you can. Simply press number 1. Other than that, we can pretty much wrap it up and check out the continuation on Power Talk. I have the link in the description box, so make sure you go to the description box. Press the link on the 7th. So if you can let the people know what time again that it's going to start, let them know what time.
Again, it starts on Pal Talk, YHWHudah.net. You can go there and maybe hit, the link. But you can come into Pal Talk and go to Yah Righteousness Yah Righteousness Movement. Again, it starts at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on the 7th of March. That's Sabbath morning, Saturday, what they call Saturn Day morning, Saturday morning. At 11 o'clock Eastern Time, 10 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Mountain Time, 8 o'clock Pacific Time. And after the initial session is about 4.5 hours long. After that, we do a live Q&A always, and I'll finish the breakdown of the book of Daniel on that. And then anybody has questions, you can come on with the questions. We'll deal with that too.
All right, once again, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the platform. Of course, we're going to bring it back on in the future. So we got a lot of things lined up for you, man. I'm pretty sure you're going to have some more debates, more lessons, all of that. So once again, I appreciate you for coming on the platform, my brother. And we're about to sign off, family. So take care, and God bless.
All praises, all honor, all glory to the supreme intellect of the universe. This is Nasi Yashuvah of Shomrei HaTorah in Atlanta. And if I'm not reading my Torah or suplexing some false deity, I'm listening to my man, Sal Showtime, and Debate Talk for You Radio. Beautiful. Keep doing the good work, brother, bringing forth the information and spreading that love.
Hey, faithful listeners and thinkers. My name is Reese Roberts, and I'm the host of a new podcast called Entertain the Thought, now available on SoundCloud and www.reeseroberts.com. The website and podcast are focused on teaching consciousness and human evolution in current social conditions. As a free member on reeseroberts.com, you'll have access to curated content like videos and free book downloads. You can also schedule personal consulting services for teenagers, singles, and married couples. I also offer an enrichment training program that teaches students the fundamental arts of research and debate to increase their knowledge of self. The T-Team is now open for enrollment. For more information, please visit www.serveincorporated.com/register. Again, that's www.servincorporated.com/register. Thank you very much for tuning in to Debate Talk for You Radio.
Welcome to the planet of debates. Debate Talk for You Radio.